D, and then the Terrans were undefeated in C. And the only loss the Terrans have had in this group so far is to be been to each other, and that will remain true today as well, it seems, as we kick off into it. It's Romanticide from that one. I'm going to strap in because I feel like Romanticide, when Spirit's involved, can always go along, especially in TVT. Let's see what happens. Top left, our red Terran player, MarineLorD.
And down over here in the bottom right-hand side of the map, we have our blue Terran player. He is Spirit, representing Kaizi Gaming. I'm excited to see what kind of shenanigans come out from Spirit, but first we have to talk about the shenanigans coming out from MarineLorD, our good old Coca Permanente, whatever named. Look, it's the Coca.
That was the
team,
worst
right?
attempt I've ever heard of it, actually.
Look,
like, I'm not saying I can do any better necessarily, but at least I haven't murdered it that bad.
Okay, you know what? I'm gonna defend myself and say I think I know. Like, I had some Freudian like subconscious thing come out where I said Kaizi, which reminds me of Kaiser. So then Kaiser Permanente is a healthcare thing that I was looking at like right before the broadcast. So I think I just immediately went to like Permanente.
So you just combined that to you.
So I just combined their teams.
So it's even worse than it sounded. It's even worse now you've explained it.
Look, okay. that's what I do, Wardy, is I dig myself into holes and I let the players with their fantastic gameplay dig me out of it.
Well, let's see if they're going to dig themselves out of this one, as obviously we are getting set to go, because there's going to be that proxied barracks, and it is just for a single Reaper. And we'll see what else is maybe planned over here, because it's kind of interesting. You're just going to build one Reaper, then build a second one. And I guess this is kind of in hopes that just Spirit doesn't build a second Reaper, plays a bit greedy, or he moves out and then you counter-attack in. Couple weird situations you're basically banking on to get something done here, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that you see everything is mirrored, but of course MarineLorD had to send out the SCV, float, and he's going to have to eventually float the barracks back home and everything. It really does feel like MarineLorD's probably not going to be thrilled about the opening. I don't think it should be like the world of difference over here unless things truly just go horrifically wrong. But, I mean, we'll see. The SCV does add in a potential little bit of DPS, and he could actually, if he wins this fight, forces the units back into the high ground, he gets to kill the SCV on the low ground. And this is actually going pretty well overall for MarineLorD.
Yeah, this is actually exactly what you need, because Spirit obviously started a reactor as well, so it's going to be a while until he gets anything else out. Back at home, MarineLorD also says, hey, look, I've got the map control of these Reapers too. I don't need to get a Hellion, you know? I know I'm being the aggressor. Spirit's the one that has to be defensive a bit. So I'm just going to take my chance to skip a Hellion and go straight to the Cyclone, and he's going to go for a second factory as well, which obviously makes up a little bit for the racks being on the map, because now it doesn't matter as much. And yeah, these three Reapers together are going to jump in. Now, they may not get out of here alive, but look at how many SCVs they're going to get. 4 workers already dead. And considering that, you know, these Reapers aren't really that, you know, important to the rest of the game, just getting SCVs right now is great, and Spirit really needs to make sure they don't get out with low HP like this, because that would be really bad. He's going to get one more SCV. Yeah, it's going to be a kill on the Reapers, but they got way too much damage done. 6 workers is going to put MarineLorD in a great spot, and now he's on his way to these Cyclones. They're going to have Magfield. They can harass with that. It is Problem City at the moment for Spirit.
Yeah, you might say that those 6 worker kills put him 6 workers up in this situation. It's pretty linear in terms of who's ahead and how many workers, but well, now I think it becomes really complicated for Spirit, right? Because since behind all this, they basically had mostly mirrored situations, except MarineLorD behind this, like you mentioned, has been going for the Cyclones, and he's actually got the Magfield Accelerator out with the factories and stuff. This makes it a lot harder for Spirit to get anything additional done. So is Spirit basically just stuck in a truly defensive position for a bit?
Yeah, I think the Cyclones force you on that no matter what. What he can do is maybe, it's risky, but he could maybe try and get his Ravens around the edge of the map and drop some turrets and so on. It's not that crazy. It becomes risky once MarineLorD knows about it, and then obviously his Cyclones can intercept. Spirit doesn't necessarily know the Cyclones on the map, right? So he doesn't necessarily know the follow-up, etc. And that's why he's really going to struggle, because if you don't know about these Cyclones and they show up and they get like a couple lock-ons, they get a chance to dish out damage with Magfield, like they will just destroy things. So a little worried in that regard. Spirit has a little army supply lead for now, though, so that's something at least.
Yeah, one of the key things about the Cyclone aggression and stuff, right, is that you need to have the vision to actually get prepared to find those lock-ons to deliver the target fire. I was thinking that maybe we'd see the barracks float forward with the Cyclones moving out, but it looks like MarineLorD's being a little indecisive about what he wants to do with the Cyclones. He moves them out, pulls them back, but he sees that this army is moving out. That is going to allow him to try and situate himself. Is the Raven going to be at the front lines? That's the main target that these Cyclones would love to lock onto.
Yeah, if you get rid of the Ravens, obviously, then you really are taking a lot of the options away from Spirits. Obviously, back at home, MarineLorD's just going to continue to build up into mech. He has to replace the barracks. He can build more factories. That's why there's a barracks on the production tab. But other than that, he's going to play into mech. And the thing is, playing against mech when you're behind is just so difficult to do. Because as the bio player, you're meant to be active on the map, being aggressive, right? Taking positions, denying a base. You can't do any of that from behind. So it immediately becomes problematic. And Spirit knows what he's up against now. He's right to siege the tank because that tank can at least zone out the Cyclones and force them to take hits as they come in to try and lock on. So the Cyclones can't do much actual damage here, but they can just stop you taking your third base already. And that's obviously perfect when MarineLorD has got his own third on position, morphing into an orbital already, and he just continues to take economic advantages.
And I love how careful MarineLorD has been with these Cyclones. He has done perfect zoning with these Cyclones. He hasn't been taking any of the stray siege tank fire and everything. He's backing up, controlling it, finding the little pickoffs. He's going to lock into one of the tanks. He does take a siege tank shot, but gets the siege tank and keeps still all of those Cyclones alive. And you said he was delaying the expansion over here, but he's got even more Cyclones coming in from behind now. So as these tanks trains move forward, there's actually a little bit of a danger that 3 Cyclones from behind could even snipe off a Raven or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Just going to be really tough to move out here. We do just see the very patient push from Spirit moving forwards, and he might be able to take his third location, but yeah, it's definitely going to be dangerous. It's not the easiest kind of game to play right now, that's for sure.
Well, behind all this, finally Spirit goes for the scan. I want to note, this is the first bit of information Spirit has seen in the entire game so far about what exactly, like, the buildings that MarineLorD had set up and everything. Obviously, the Cyclones are a big reveal that there's definitely multiple factors and everything, but it just goes to show how defensive Spirit has had to be this entire game. And it's kind of an awkward spot when you're ultra defensive against a meching player.
Yep, that's the real problem, right? Like, if this was like bio versus bio or whatever, marine tank versus marine tank, I really look at this and say, well, you know, you can always work your way out of trouble, especially on a map like Romanticide. But against mech, it feels like Spirit's going to be locked down, not able to do much. I almost wouldn't even hate it if he did something like really kind of just almost crazy or radical, where it's like, hey, what if I just sort of drop down extra starports and try and take like mega air control? Because it just doesn't feel like he's going to do much with the marine tank.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. And we do finally have the first set of medevacs coming on out. Before this has basically just all been Vikings that have been coming out from Spirit. So that does leave him in an interesting place where now he's going to have to try and see what he can do with those medevacs if he just has to go for a drop and try and push out. But that's so dangerous because look at this beautiful spread with the Cyclones from MarineLorD. He's getting ready to intercept drops effectively right now.
Yep. It's basically impossible to do anything against MarineLorD at this moment in time. It's, I mean, it's just been a tough game for Spirit. And, you know, the supplies are like, well, look, the game's kind of close, right? But it is just the fact that this is bio versus mech at the core of it. That is the problem. Spirit is not able to do what he's meant to be doing here. And that means MarineLorD is kind of just running away with this game for the moment.
Only got a careful little move out over here with the Bioforce. Goes for the stim up because I think he knew that the Cyclone was there. That is finally a nice pickoff on that Cyclone, by the way. Outside of the Reapers, it's the only Cyclone to go down so far. So Spirit being able to finally clean up some of those is nice. He's going to be able to find 1 or 2 more Cyclones over here. Just trade out for a few Marines. Doesn't want to lose the medevacs to the Cyclone lock on though. Woo boy.
Yeah, I mean, it only takes 1, 2 Cyclone lock-ons and that medevac's dead. Yeah, I mean, it started off well for Spirit, obviously getting a Cyclone to is neat, but at the end of the day as well, you're kind of at this point now where the Cyclones aren't even as important in the long run. As long as they're trading out somewhat well, which obviously they are so far, you know, you've got tanks behind this. The Cyclones are much more of an early game setup here initially, and maybe late game you go back into them to help you in some of the anti-air situations. But as of right now, you know, it doesn't matter if you trade out these Cyclones for a medevac, because that's actually good for you. Anything that slows down Spirit even further, because your army back at home, the one that's building up now for MarineLorD, that is the one that's going to really get the job done.
Yeah, it's funny to think this is the furthest Spirit has ever been out on this map in this game so far, and he's actually going to get caught by the Hellions, plus the Cyclones lock onto the Medivacs. The rest of the Bioforce is going to go down, and most of the Cyclones still stay alive. So again, the threat to any additional Medivacs to try and move out is still going to be there. Spirit just cannot get out of his main base onto the map against a meching player, and he's Bio. This is the opposite of what is normally supposed to be happening.
Yeah, big stim here as he wants to try and take this fight a little bit. He's losing Vikings. He gets an anti-armor missile up, but there's no way you can continue on into this because those tanks from MarineLorD will just siege. And now MarineLord's the one who's like, well, maybe I could swing around the bottom side. In the end, he just lets a few Hellions go down. You can also just see in the timing of the fourth base is once more the fourth base of MarineLorD already down in position, while the fourth base of Spirit is just now lifting up, floating over. And again, that's not meant to be this way around. And now you're losing SCVs as well. And MarineLorD just continues to take further and further control over this game.
Absolutely brutal to lose all these workers right now. Spirit is almost forced into a semi-all-in position, just how this game has been going, plus that last little loss. But now the 3 Vikings are going to come on forward. A couple interference matrices come out, but what does it matter with 2 interference matrices when there's still 10 tanks left siege or so? And the Viking count for MarineLorD is just too much, so the Ravens can't even get closer. The Vikings for Spirit get kind of demolished. And Spirit kind of has to go back home with his tail between his legs. And my biggest fear now, Wardy, is that the upgrades are finishing now for MarineLorD. Nothing is stopping him from just moving across the map now.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that could possibly stop him is some kind of counterattacking stuff. And you can see these tanks are like, well, maybe we can make a difference here. They're going to siege. But the thing is, there's libs too. And you don't really have air control with Spirit, right? So libs can just siege. They can push back the tank lines. And that means Spirit just has to fall back. It's the counterattack up at the top. That needs to do something here. It's his only real hope in this moment of the game. He stims on forward. He's going to run on in. And, I mean, a couple of missile turrets going down. Yeah, some tanks getting sieged up. The spread is decent. And he'll get rid of a couple tanks here, right? But he loses all of the bio units. And, yeah, I mean, resetting the tank count is usually nice. Or at least killing some tanks is usually nice. But it's just too expensive. Spirit can't afford all this.
Yeah. Target fires down one of the siege tanks and gets a second one as well. That was lower on hit points from earlier with those liberators. We're starting to see that Spirit is beginning to lose ground. And if this army gets in on top of that 4th base, Spirit's going to be in a lot of trouble because, frankly, MarineLorD is on 5 bases again with a mech army. So if he's able to get a base lead count, I just don't know how Spirit can ever even hope to come back in this game. You need to be able to at least, keep up with your opponent's production, if not overtake it as a bio player.
Yep. No, it's it just gets worse and worse. I know this entire cast seems as though we're just singing the doom of Spirit, but it really has just been a downward spiral since the start of the game.
Yeah, I mean, we both predicted Spirit to win, so I think we're both hoping and rooting for him a little bit, but this is definitely not going Spirit's way right now. This little Bioforce is going to be able to snag a Planetary Fortress kill. And that is kind of nice. Forces some of the siege tanks to reposition everything, but it is still a base for a base, and MarineLorD is more than happy to take that trade right now.
He's fine. It's a 5th base for a 4th base, right? And yeah, the base the right side is up from Spirit, so it's okay-ish, but obviously that base is now separated away, and that means that MarineLorD should be able to get the right side base if he knows it's there as well, right? So, going to that base over there doesn't really help you at all just yet. And that's kind of, again, part of the problem is just going to be seeing MarineLorD pushing up into Spirit's natural. He is doing what he needs to here, and he is going to be looking to put himself really into the winning position. So you're just going to see a lib sieging up on top of another mineral line. I mean, Spirit's just trying to do what he can across the map, but this entire game got away with him from the opening. Like, a single proxy Rax and a few Reapers just got so much done.
Yeah, no, I think it's such a key thing to hone in on is that this game was actually just set in motion by 6 worker kills from 2 or 3 Reapers. Spirit is living up to his name and showing the best fighting spirit he has possible, where he's transferring his workers from the bottom of the map, the bottom left-hand side of the map, to the top right-hand side of the map, while he also tries to go for the drop, but it is in fact not going to work, as that is going to be firmly putting game number 1 in MarineLorD's control.
Yeah, I mean, there's just really not much else to say. I think we really talked this game to death as Spirit really was dead, Like, it seems like one of those things. It's like, well, 6 workers early. Okay, it's a mirror matchup, but the game goes on so long. Surely there's a way back into it. But it's because it's mech versus bio, and all the things you need to do to beat mech weren't in motion because of what happened early, and that was the killing blow. Not just the 6 worker kills, but the choice of MarineLorD to follow up with mech. And obviously that's the entire point of the build, right? That's where this build actually becomes really reasonable and it can actually get stuff done, because very little damage transitions to a game where, unless you make major mistakes, it's almost unlosable.
Yeah, I feel like that game is going to be just one of those games that I point to for a bit whenever people are like, well, the supplies are even. It's like, look, not all units are created equal. Not all builds are created equal. Just because supplies are even or you have like somewhat close worker counts and stuff, it's like, it's not actually enough sometimes. Like, you do need to have sometimes like the correct compositions, the correct map presence and everything in order to handle and, you know, start shutting down some of those builds. There's the idea of the immobile army versus the mobile army. And when the immobile army is seemingly more mobile than the mobile army, then there's already kind of some problems spinning up. So all of that being said and done, the bright side about this situation for Spirit is that was a game that effectively in the first few minutes, something went terribly wrong, and everything after that can be rooted back to that single cause of the Proxy Reaper getting way more damage done than it probably should have for that situation. So Spirit can look back at that and say, like, game number 2, like, let's just make sure that doesn't happen again. And everything else that went wrong after that, the entire last 10 minutes is just because I was playing from behind anyways. Like, I don't have to think too much about that.
Yeah, it's a really easy game to put behind you. Like, well, you know, I lost the game early, I stayed in it, but, you know, I was just behind. So it's not like, you know, you don't just say, oh, you know, I feel like I was outplayed here or anything. It's not like it was like, oh, man, like, I just don't know what I'm going to change. It's kind of obvious what you change. You have a very, you know, a little bit of a better early game. That early defense is bad, and I'm sure we won't even see a similar setup initially from, you know, MarineLorD. And then you've got a completely different canvas to paint on as Spirit, and it should just turn out very differently. Plus, the map is now Beckett Industries, so if you want to try and play a slow defensive game, Fear Dragon, that's probably not going to happen.
I will be very surprised if we get another mech opening over here from our other Terran player. But first, let's introduce this guy up in the top right-hand side of the map. We have our blue Terran player from Kaizi Gaming. Here's Spirit.
In the bottom left-hand side, our red Terran is MarineLorD.
Okay, you're not gonna try saying the full name for his team?
I mean, if I know I can't say it properly, why would I try? It's almost like a logical... Skoka authentic.
Wow.
Bit.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. That's pretty good. I'm gonna give you props on that one. I was gonna find a way to make fun of you just to get revenge, but
I mean, at least the second word was the, you know, started with the correct letter when I tried it, right? So, I mean, there was a
P in there. Okay, there's a P in the third word at least.
I mean, yes.
I got most of the letters, okay? I got most of the letters in there.
You used some letters of the alphabet, yes, Fear.
I used letters in the alphabet that overlapped with some of the letters in the actual name. So I'm proud of myself too.
We take those.
We take those W's. All right. Well, as you can see, it is in fact barracks at home, but you know, all things considered, Wardy, Beckett is one of those maps that's got a pretty short rush distance, and at some point isn't just building your barracks by the ramp almost proxying your opponent.
It's like mi casa is su casa. You know, my home is your home because we're so close together on this map, right? Like, yeah, this is as good as a proxy rack sometimes. Yeah, no, it's it definitely has a very different feel to it. And this game is gonna get interesting because you have to open double gas, you have to go for this factory early, you have to go Hellions, because if you don't, you can just lose so quickly. Because if you lose one unit and, you know, then your opponent can reinforce as quick as they can here, the entire game really does just spiral. So you've got to be super careful. And that's why usually you don't see Beckett even in like a mirror matchup, because it's just so freaking volatile that nobody wants to play it, because it's so hard to reliably play a game on this map and kind of to get it to look how you want it to. Yeah,
absolutely. It is a good call out that we don't actually see Beckett even in a lot of the mirror matchups for that kind of reason. It's a tough matchup to play, or map to play on, but at the same time, you know, both these players led it through the vetoes, and one of these players didn't even just like pick it as, okay, this is the last map, this is our game 3. Like, they picked it as game 2. So Interested to see how things go. A nice little pick off there on the SCV. Again, with MarineLorD and those Reapers, finding bits of damage. Even just those small delays on the command center is very nice.
Yep, a slowdown does go a long way. There's definitely benefits to MarineLorD, obviously. My game not quite as game-changing as last time around because there wasn't all the rest of the SCVs. So you are going to see a little bit of a difference, right? I mean, we see Reactor is already done out of Spirit, and Tech Lab just now building for the Cyclone. Very different to the Reactor just now building, and a Cyclone already on the way out from MarineLorD. So there are going to be some different unit compositions here, and this is where TVT can already start to look a little bit volatile, because all of a sudden these guys have different units. They can show up across the map quickly. Fights can go very different ways, and yeah, you've got to be really on top of every possibility at this point in time.
Yeah, when we're talking about the army compositions and stuff, Wardy, do you like the idea of having more mobile, quick compositions on a small map like Beckett, or do you like the kind of slower army? Because I can see kind of, the arguments for both sides. Like the mobile compositions can quickly move around and get harassment and stuff done, but at the same time, the slow composition doesn't have to push as far across the map to just get the counter damage done or something, right?
Yeah, it's a fun question, right? Because like you say, it's if you can get a mech push just out on the map here, then brilliant, because you're going to be off across the map and you're already on the other side, and it's very difficult to stop. The problem is then the more mobile kind of faster comps typically just get rolling earlier in the game, so it can be more difficult to get to mech in the first place, for example, right? So I actually do think in the right hands or if the right starter, playing mech on this map can be pretty powerful. But you've also got to remember that say your opponent kind of gets out of position or something, or you start that mech push, the counterattacks come so much sooner as well, even if your opponent wasn't initially ready to counterattack. So that's another little benefit of being the mobile player. But even if you're caught a bit off guard, you can then still make the game crazy, whereas on a map like Commander's side, if the mech army sieges on top of you, well, that's it. You've got to kind of fight it, right? But on Beckett, you can say, oh, let's go across the map. I'm going to start making this base trade happen pretty quickly anyway. So it's a good question. I don't think there's any real answer for it, right? And I think kind of situational just altogether.
That makes me happy, Wardy, because that's the best kind of situation, because it just highlights how beautiful StarCraft is, and the fact that it's not every single situation has to be and now this favors X player. It's well, no, it depends on how you play it out, and it can favor players who have a particular playstyle. Now, this is man, MarineLorD with his Reapers, man. I know this is still not quite the same. This is not anywhere near the level of the damage of the Reaper last game, but even finding 2 worker kills this late on and delaying the 3rd CC and getting the full scout, MarineLorD's Reapers, man, crazy.
Reaper Lord, he should rename to at this point. He's having a heck of a series with his Reapers, absolutely. He is going to go mech, by the way, so kind of got the feeling, he's been playing mech a fair amount. Beckett might be part of the reason he lets kind of Beckett come through as well, right? Because like I say, if you can get up to mech, it can be powerful, because once you start moving across the map, you're basically already on the other side, and there's not a lot of opportunity to maybe shut that down. So yeah, this is going to be a really fun game. I mean, you asked a really good question. Well, the Reaper's back in deja vu. This is actually just what happened half a minute ago. Yeah, it was a really good question for you, Dragon, because now we've got mech against bio, and we're actually going to get to see that slower army versus that more mobile army again.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. The one kind of scare that I have right now, well, Spirit did see with his Reaper that this army was kind of starting to move out and stuff, but is he actually going to be prepared for this? It's coming in on the south side right now. It's looking for an angle. Spirit is already sieged up, though, and MarineLorD is going to have to back off and look for a different angle. The nice thing, though, here for MarineLorD is that he knows that where the position where the command center is being built, which is always a big signal of also where the 3rd base is going to be taken. And I think it's pretty common usually to try and go for that low ground 3rd base. So if MarineLorD wants to, he can even potentially try and get sieged up a little bit further in and just prevent the 3rd base from landing.
Yeah, that would definitely be nice, as he's got the air control as well. Obviously, there's no Cyclones really this time around, right? Yes, there's a couple, but there's no upgrade or anything. This is just tanks and Hellions and, whatever he can get to push. Because again, on this map, you don't really have the space to kind of build Cyclones and then fall back, because your opponent's army is just going to come straight across and kill you. So you need the tanks out earlier for that reason. And so it also, you just don't need the Cyclones as much, because you can get to the tanks and they can be active on the map much easier this time around, as well as kind of lock on that tanks need, but won't turn into anything, as we are trying to take that 3rd base. Spirit is I will land in the face of danger. I have no care in the world.
Yeah, pretty bold there. Now, Siege Tank that is in range of the command center does get interference matrix, but not a whole lot going to come of it, as the Siege Tanks over here for Spirit are not able to actually get the shots off to kill anything and get interference matrix themselves. You already mentioned this before. MarineLorD does still hold a little bit of a solid position in the air with the Viking counts, but now it's 7-7 Vikings. So as soon as Spirit gathers up all of his forces, he should be able to contend with this, especially with the slightly faster reinforcements.
I really love how MarineLorD's kind of approaching this series, because I think he knows the part of the games where Spirit is very good, and he's really just never letting him get to those parts of the games, as this is going to be an air battle that goes okay for Spirit. Anti-armor missile helped a lot. He has to fall back. He's got a couple more Vikings. He will take air control. It's funny because it's now like, do you try and get libs out to actually push this back, or what do you do? It's a tough call, as his third base has to lift up. Oh my god, that third is going to be repaired, but so many SCVs lost, man. Spirit gets out, but yeah, not really out. Just has to abandon his third base as well. And this was rough. Like I say, I really like how MarineLorD played this series, because I really believe that the way he's opened up here has just stopped Spirit playing that game that he looked so good with against Clem. He just completely took, Spirit's options away from him. And Spirit just doesn't know or seem to have any sort of response to someone who's so in his face so quickly in the game.
Yeah, it's been pretty brutal to watch, and MarineLorD's just going to charge up as most of the army is now on the south side. I guess I could potentially have set up for some kind of concave, but I just don't think Spirit has enough army left over at this point, or economy left over to actually contend with this. So the Marines go after the SCVs, the Siege Tanks zone out everything else, and I think that you were saying Spirit is kind of out, but I feel like he might be out of the game soon.
Yeah, I think he's in a lot of trouble here. There's just nothing. It was kind of weird because like in the fight, I was like kind of looking at the Vikings. I was like, oh, he's getting air control. And at the time, I wasn't really noticing how many SCVs he's losing. He's really making no progress on the ground. So yeah, it was like he started to win one war just to really lose out on the other war. Yeah, this is just going to be, well, MarineLorD all over Spirit right now, and it's just going to be very difficult to do anything at this point. And it's going to become like the last game for DreamHack. And if this goes on at all, we're just going to be talking about how Spirit is continually dying. With 45 workers on the side of the screen already killed off, I think it's fair to understand why.
Yeah, unfortunately. I will say, kudos to MarineLorD, because if he does end up closing this out as he really should at this point, he's going to have the 2-0, and considering Clem dropped a map to Stefano and actually nearly lost to Stefano even in Game 3, that's actually going to mean that MarineLorD has a better map score than Clem soon.
Yeah, but
he's going to be top of the group.
Yeah, that doesn't matter though, because they still play